everyone, and welcome down to episode number 29 of the Down South Photo Show with me, Brendan Waits, and my good friend down in Tasmania, Cam Blake. But before Cam speaks tonight, I would like to say a big shout out to everyone who is liking, following, subscribing, sharing, also reviewing us on your various podcast outlets, Apple, Spotify, etc. We really appreciate the feedback that the algorithm gets to help promote our show. So that's been awesome. And how are you, Cam?
I'm good, mate. Have we got some good reviews on podcasts? I don't see the podcast stats.
We've got a review. One day I'll send you the podcast stats.
Yeah, that'd be good. I'd like to see what's going on in the world of podcasts.
They make good reading. I mean, you are sort of half the operation here, I guess,
well, you're the brains, I'm the brawn, I guess.
Stop. Oh, jeez.
Yes, hello. I am good.
Before we go any further, because I know people are already wondering, why are you sunburnt?
Why am I sunburnt? Because I can't play golf. Because I took an extra 30 shots than normal to get around a golf course. No, I've been away the last 3 days. A good friend of mine, Chris, who's getting married this weekend. So this will be this Saturday, coming on photographing his wedding. He had a 3-day golf day up at the wonderful Barnbougle Dunes in Lost Farm at the top end of Tassie. As a golf fan yourself, you know how good those courses are. So we spent 3 days up there on a bucks thing, really. It got pretty messy the first night, and it got very sensible after that. But the golf was good, day one. I actually won the first day of golf, would you believe?
Yes, I would believe. I've seen you swing a golf club, Cameron. You're not too shabby with the old
keep that
stick
thought
in your hand.
Keep that thought. So I did all right day one, and then we played. There's actually 3 courses up there. There's Lost Farm, Barnbougle, and Bugle Dunes. And the Dunes is like a par 3-4 course, 14 holes. And then we played Lost Farm, and that was good. And then we played Barnbougle today. But the wind kicked in today. The sunscreen sweated off. It was hot. And like I said, I spent an extra 30 shots out there that I certainly didn't need to. So I'm going to look like an idiot at the wedding. I'm going to be sunburnt with the raccoon eyes. And I've tried to put a light on here to balance out the redness and the pink. I should do it myself in black and white. Can I change myself to black and white?
Probably, but I'm not pausing the show for you to do it. So if you get all funny and while people are watching, and maybe give it a go.
I'm good. I'm well. Like I said, I have a couple of days off, and then back in. I've got a lot of emails and stuff to catch up on tomorrow, and then shooting a wedding on the weekend. So that should be pretty cool.
And where is the wedding, Cam?
The wedding is at a vineyard in the Tamar Valley, which is
lovely.
Yeah, well, we're spoiled down here. Shit, I tell you, it's so good down here. Wineries, golf courses, mountain biking, hiking, food, seafood. Not much COVID. It's great.
Amazing. Well, aside from the COVID thing, Victoria's got none of that stuff.
Yeah, you do. You got some nice golf. You got some nice golf.
I was being a wee bit sarcastic, Cameron.
Yeah, you've got some good stuff up there. But so that's on this weekend. It won't be it's a professional job, of course, but it won't be.
Naturally.
It'll be one shot for you, one shot for me, type of thing.
That's right.
Yes.
Yeah. So any photographer that works with a drink in their hand is a friend of mine.
Yes.
That'll work for you. Yeah. Speaking of, I was out at the Vic Open Golf today at beautiful 13th Beach. So
you were.
We've both been doing the golfing thing rather than the photography thing. Maybe we should change the name of the podcast. But it was excellent. Loved it. It did get a bit breezy out there. The sun was shining. It was absolutely beautiful. But to see some world quality golf, world class golf, literally 5 minutes from my doorstep is a thrill every year. Very, very lucky to have that event down here. So, actually, we missed it last year, of course, because of the big bad COVID, but we got it back on track this year. So
that is pretty cool. And you know what I liked about the golf that I played the other day, and I'm sure you do as well when you go to golf courses, is the landscape photographer in me just comes out.
Yes,
it's like, that's a great hole. Look at that, like the ocean in the background, or the crazy bunkers and stuff like that. Golf courses make good photography topics.
Which is funny you should say that, because I see that as a retirement thing. You've gone black and white.
Yeah, no, it's great, isn't it?
You've gone back to the 60s.
That's better.
I like it. No, it's not.
No.
That's fine. Right, while Cam mucks around, I'll keep talking.
Sorry.
I can see myself, because my number one passion in life is photography, clearly.
Yep.
A very close second is becoming golf. I'm a terrible golfer, but I'm one of the... And for those of you listening who might play golf and understand what I'm talking about, but those of you who don't get it, you've probably heard people talk about golf getting into your blood and definitely getting under your skin. There's no doubt about that. But it's I can see myself down the track combining my two passions and getting into some golf course photography. Particularly those beautiful courses, your links style courses, Barnbougle, the whole Barnbougle setup.
Yeah.
Link style golf, for those who don't know, literally the term links, it's the land between a main road and the ocean. So that's called the links land. It's the land that links.
I read that.
Well,
today.
it's actually not necessarily even a main road, but like farmland and the ocean. It's land that really wouldn't have been able to be used otherwise. So a lot of golf courses.
It's the land that links the ocean to the land.
Yeah,
that's
so
and I actually did learn that as well.
Yeah,
up on,
so
it was written in the
yeah, in Scotland, of course, is where all that began, and they are famous for their links land. But the topography that you get on these golf courses is absolutely stunning, and quite often links is the natural lie of the land. Nothing gets sculpted or changed. They literally use the way the land is, and they put a tee here and they put a green there, and that's how it works. So as a photographer, and particularly a landscape photographer, you're right. I've been out on golf courses and had a look around and like lost focus on my game because I'm looking at fantastic photos to take. So I
agree. And we've been going for 7 minutes now talking about golf, so we've just doubled. I mean, we've just halved our normal listeners, so we do apologise for that.
Yeah, sorry.
We do get carried away with golf a bit.
With golf tragics. Now, your background has just changed, and I'm assuming that would be Barnbougle.
No. This is actually the Lost Farm. So, for those playing at home who can't see, it's not necessarily a boring golf shot. It is actually a landscape photography shot, and it's got a golf green in it, but it's got the setting sun catching all the reeds of the grass and a bit of a track as a leading line going through. But yeah, that was at the Lost Farm on night one as we're settling in for the Bucks activities, which didn't end well for him.
Okay.
Yeah, and your background looks a little bit.
Bucks dues are still a thing because it's 1984.
Yeah, you know the Buck. You know Chris. He's played at your golf classic.
I do know Chris.
Yeah.
Hello, Chris. Congratulations on your nuptials.
Yes. And you're sitting on a train line.
Speaking of leading lines, this was my most recent landscape photo that I've taken. That is the train line that runs right through the middle of the Bellarine Peninsula, which is where Ocean Grove is. And beside it, just up there, is a thing called the rail trail. Lots of rail trails are all over the place, but this is ours. And this goes from Queenscliff. It actually technically goes all the way into Geelong, but the main part that you can ride your bike along and that sort of stuff sort of peters out as you get up closer to a little town called Leopold. Yeah. Anyway, I was out there last night on a little bike ride with my boy and came across the train lines. Went, hang on a minute, that looks pretty cool.
Are they in use?
Yes. Okay, so that train line there, it's a tourist train line now.
Okay.
So there's a couple of trains that run on it. There's a Thomas the Tank Engine for the kids that goes up there, and there's also the blues train where you can get on and have a meal and a beer and listen to some blues. That's very, very cool.
That's cool.
And there's also the Q train, which is a more upmarket sort of restaurant train.
Oh, yeah.
All three of which I've done. So
good on you.
It's cool. And the Bellarine Peninsula has got some hidden gems, particularly when you go away from the coast and you go inland a little bit. Yeah. A lot of nice farmland, that sort of stuff. I
gather as well, your bike riding is a bit like your golfing as well, that you're riding along and you see photos. And this is probably a little bit of a tip that people can take with them. This is where the iPhones do come in really handy, is that if you're out, even with the family or friends and just getting some exercise or some fresh air, there's always a shot, and you don't always have to be at some amazing location to get it. So I always encourage people to take a camera with them. If you're going bike riding or hiking or, playing golf or going on a boat or going whatever you're doing, just take a camera with you,
Yeah. No, as I say, that it's always with me now, whether I like it or not. But one of the reasons I carry it with me all the time is because it's a great little camera that can do stuff like that. And it's good for landscape, for scouting. So for location scouting, I should say.
Yeah,
where you can line up a few shots, you can take the shots and have a look at ideas, and you might go back there with your real camera and take some real photos.
Yeah, exactly. And I think some of the best little cameras I've ever used. When I bought a Fuji camera, I bought like a Fuji digital camera. You got like this little point and shoot with it. It was like I can't remember, was it X100 or V100 or something like that? A little fixed focused Fuji lens. I used to take that in the car. I used to take it everywhere. It was just a great little happy snapper that actually came out with some pretty good results. And I did exactly that. I'd use it for like, oh, okay, crap, I haven't got my big camera here, but hey, I can still get a pretty good, decent shot out of this and use it, and promote it or use it as scouting. So don't think you can't take photos, folks. If you're out and about, you can always get photos.
And they make really handy zoom backgrounds as well.
They do. Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit, Cameron. I don't want to bring the tone or the mood down of the podcast.
Is that possible?
But our main topic tonight is quite interesting.
Is it?
Cam, I don't know. Let me give you my take on it, and you go. If anyone knows Cam and they follow him on social media and stuff, he posts a lot. He posts a lot of photos, that's for sure. And he is prone every now and then to some... what's the phrase? I don't want to use antagonistic. That's not quite right. Controversial sometimes posts and topics and things.
So far, so good. Yeah.
But it keeps a lot of people on their toes and makes for interesting conversation. Now, Cam, you were saying to me off air that you will sometimes post something about a workshop that you might have coming up, for example, and talk a bit about that and give a bit of background about a workshop. And you might get how many
might get
likes?
Half
so let's talk Facebook here. So how many hits or likes would you
get? A workshop update or something like that might get half a dozen hits, a dozen hits, maybe a few shares, maybe a couple of comments. Enough to warrant a response or something like that for someone. Yeah. But
so during the week, I'm not sure what day it was. You'd be more across that than I would. During the week, we had an Aurora event down here, which we've talked about before. We had an Aurora event prior to one of our podcasts at the end of last year, or towards the end of last year.
Yeah.
And there was another one, very, very strong Aurora down in Tasmania.
There was.
And as is usually the case, the next day social media lit up with Aurora photos, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners would have seen that.
Yeah.
It went pretty crazy. Cameron decided to discuss these images a little bit, and I want to say that you questioned people. No, you didn't question people. You questioned the quality of the images that were shown, and in terms of their repetitive nature, and how there was a lack of creativity to these images. How am I doing so far?
In my opinion, yeah, absolutely. That
in your opinion?
Again, that can be very subjective.
Yep.
So I just noticed that, and again, and one, there's nothing wrong with people taking Aurora shots. There is nothing wrong with people posting them on social media. Absolutely nothing wrong with any of that. All I saw after the Aurora, as has happened multiple times since I've been living down in a place where you see Auroras, is like you said, the very next day there is people, posting their shots up. People are happy what they got. They're excited what they got. They're showing off what they got, and myself guilty of that as well. But over the last few months, when we've had a couple, the majority of pictures I see getting posted on social media, just to me, seem to be really. Like they almost blend into one style of photo, which is just water reflection, sky, maybe some trees, and again, that's fine. As you mentioned, I put up a post, and I did start at saying this was going to cause controversy because I knew it was going to challenge a few people. I tried to put it out there to already dampen what I knew was going to come back at me, but I just wanted to sort of put it out there and try and challenge people to maybe think about. You get these amazing auroras, and people spend hours out there overnight. I've got mates who go out on dark, get home when the sun's coming up. They spend 6 or 7 hours chasing auroras, as they call them. But what I don't see is any real difference in creativity across the board. You get the occasional, wow, that's a cool shot. That's never seen that before. That's really cool. But I find, just from where I'm looking at, from my perspective, is that there seems to be a lot of similar shots of the auroras going. And now, people can easily say, well, how are you meant to make it look any different? There's lights in the sky, it's dark. What else can you do? And that was where I was trying to get at. And I actually said, come on, folks, we, me included, all need to get a bit more creative when we're out there. And the reason is why I haven't been out and shot an aurora for a little while is because I can't think of somewhere creative to go to create something I haven't already done. So I'm challenged myself to go find a location that hasn't been done before, that's going to be unique, or do something different, So anyway, as you're aware, that did sort of kick off pretty well as a topic.
So as of now, so this was posted on the 4th of February, and as of now, that has had 91 comments underneath, and from some of the feedback I know that you wrote, roughly half of that has been derogatory, negative, having a crack at you for trying to raise awareness in something where you're just trying to raise the bar. And now people are going to say, "Oh, Brendan's going into bat for his mate Cam here," and in a little way, I suppose I am, but I think he has a really valid point, and that is that with the Aurora Australis, it does look pretty much the same all the time. We're not as lucky as the Northern Lights where you get a lot of changes in colorscape and all that sort of stuff. Down here, the sky goes from black to purple into some yellows, into some reds, and then it's at the horizon. So it is, and it is all. I hate the phrase "seen one, seen them all," but it does sort of ring of that when you look at a lot of the photos that were posted. And the ones that stopped me in my tracks were the ones that had something a little bit different in them. They weren't just the Aurora. I mean, speaking for myself, last year was the first Aurora I ever shot, and I got really excited. It was it was cool. I loved it. I had a great time doing it. I was thrilled to be able to capture it. Well, I think I captured it quite well. I've been lucky enough to be able to sell a few of the prints, so that's a vote of confidence, I guess. But I'm sort of done with that. If another one happens, I think I'll be battling to try and get a different angle on it, but I'm going to try, that's for sure.
And that's the thing, and you're right. I wouldn't say that the comments were derogatory as such, but there was definitely a bit of a forked tongue in some of the responses that we got. And a lot of people, at least 50% of people sort of went more after, they played the man and not the ball, so to speak. They sort of went after me saying, well, you're a professional photographer and you shoot stuff all the time. We're just out having a bit of fun. How dare you say our photos aren't any good? And that wasn't my point at all. So I think a few people missed the mark. I think a few people maybe were a little bit oversensitive. And I can understand that, where some people go out for the first time and see an aurora and they get really excited on their camera. Excellent. This was not aimed at you guys. It wasn't aimed at people just going out to take a look and take a happy snap and go home. It was aimed at the people that consistently go out every time there's an aurora and consistently get the same sort of shot. And then the other 50% of people were actually supportive, and they're like, yeah, you know what, you're 100%, I agree. Pretty much like what you've said. I've noticed as well that they're all fairly similar shots. And there's nothing wrong with someone saying that and saying they need to be a bit creative. But it certainly created a bit of a stir. And it's quite interesting how those sort of topics evolve. And I was talking to another friend of mine the other day about it. Same thing. He rang me up. He's like, "What are you doing, stirring shit up again?" And and I'm like, "Well, not really." And what I found as well, especially with social media, there was a bit of a trend. And it started off quite negative, and then when a few people got on there positively, it started to swing positive. The comments came back as being more positive.
Which is social media all over, isn't it? I mean, you do get one or two people sort of beating the drum, and then other people go, yeah, well, that's my opinion too, and they get in that echo chamber where they want to, they want to hitch their wagon to their own beliefs. So that's why you get these ebbs and flows in it, and I understand that. But I also think it's got a little bit to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's got a little bit to do with the fact that when you go out to shoot an aurora, what you see with your naked eye is nothing like the photo.
No,
ever.
That's right.
Nothing like it. Okay.
That's right.
And I think some people get a bit of a bee in their bonnet about that, particularly people who aren't as into photography as, certainly not as we are, but even your amateur photographers. Quite often you'll see one of the early questions is, but could you see that with your naked eye? And the answer is no, you couldn't, but you use you're using. So is it trickery? Is it what's going on here? What are people actually seeing? It's a long exposure, so therefore more light and colour has burnt into the sensor, and it's giving you
I think with the Auroras, I think a lot of it comes back purely to the sensors being a lot more sensitive to colour than what at night time we almost go into monovision with our eyes. That's how our eyes are. But I think a sensor is a lot more sensitive and a lot more adaptable to colour at night time. So so I think when people
point being the colour's there. It is for all intent and purposes natural.
Yeah.
The way you capture it is far from natural.
Yeah, that's right. And I've had people have a crack at me about my Aurora stuff, saying it looks nothing like that. You're manipulating your images and you're oversaturating. And I can tell you now, my Aurora shots, I do not even touch saturation. It is contrast and a little bit of exposure adjustment. That's all it is. But the camera does a lot of the work on the sensor. So, yeah, the Auroras can be it can be a real sort of sensitive topic for people about shooting Auroras, and it's not the first time I've come across it. I had a shot that was quite popular down here many years ago, and that was put on an Aurora group, and that had like 20,000 shares, and it had some stupid numbers. And someone who was an admin of that shot of that page decided to delete the post, which I didn't know why. I found out later on that they just didn't like the way they thought I'd over-processed it, which I hadn't.
Right.
But they sort of got a bee in their bonnet for that as well. So, but yeah, getting back to this post, it was, it was there to start a conversation, and I think this leads on to something I've been saying for a little while. Is photography's an art, music's an art, painting's an art. There's all the different arts that we have, but for some reason, photography seems to be the only art that you can't comment on unless it's absolutely positive. Like, and I think that's a lot. Like 90% of us all live in social media world where that's where we see all the photos. But to me,
I think there's a very simple explanation for that, and that is that we can all do it. And anyone can take up photography and within a relatively short space of time get really good at it. Mate, not everyone can paint a picture.
No,
not
but
everyone can play guitar like Angus Young. Not everyone,
Well, we wish. I challenge it though. I reckon, like I've got an acoustic guitar here and I can play a few little chords. I reckon if I put a video of me playing a basic song and put it on my Facebook page and said, hey, I'm just sort of learning how to play a bit of guitar, how is it? People are going to say, oh, that's okay. You missed a few notes, or keep practicing. That's okay. Or you missed it. Yeah. Like I had a guy comment on my YouTube channel the other day about my editing style of the video I put up, and he said that the sound was a little bit too loud over the voices. I said, cool, thanks, mate. I'm new to this, so I don't really know much about it. I'll fix it. But with photography, as soon as you hint anywhere off the norm of being 100% positive, the pitchforks and blowtorches are out, and they're out there after you because you're not allowed to say anything about someone's photo. Now, that's different for me. For example, this shot behind me at the golf course. If I got on there and said, "That's just a shit shot. I don't like it. It's crap. You haven't done this. You haven't done that. It's just terrible." If everything's completely negative, then that's not beneficial. But if you can say, hey, I don't really like, it's not really my style of shot, but hey, maybe if you tried this, or maybe it might be a bit more appealing to me, you shouldn't be shot down for that opinion. And I find with photography, that happens so much. And as soon as I challenge people to challenge my photography. I'm not the best photographer in the world, very far from it. But I challenge people to get on there and say, oh, look, I like what you did, but for me, that doesn't work there. Because I can learn from that. I can actually increase my audience of people who like my photography by taking on feedback. And it's missing, and I don't know why.
Yeah, well, there's nothing wrong with a bit of dead honest critique here and there.
Yeah.
But I think you're right insofar as, particularly with your Aurora post, is there was a bit of playing the man instead of the ball, which happens far too regularly, particularly in social media. But I guess that's the downside, isn't it? If you're going to put yourself out there on social media, you're going to take what's coming.
Yeah.
But I completely agree that the photographic community can be, like head for negative territory really quickly.
Yeah.
It's almost bizarre when someone, as you say, when someone does put out an honest opinion, how quickly
It's almost like
shot down.
it's almost like our responses are on ISO 100,000. We're hypersensitive to anything that gets said about photographs.
Yeah.
And it's incredible. Like, people just come out of the woodwork who, if someone puts up a photo and you sort of give a little bit of feedback, or they didn't ask for feedback, don't give it to them, or they didn't do this. But you're putting your artwork out in a public sphere, then you've got to expect someone to not like it, it doesn't mean they don't like you. It just means they don't like that art. I can't stand people taking photo waterfalls with red people in red jackets staring into me. Like, that to me doesn't work for me. But I can't possibly go out there and say to someone, hey, why don't you try taking the person out of the photo, because I don't really like them with being in the photo.
That's right.
Like, you just can't say it, because you'll just get shot down. And it's been happening for a while, and I think Instagram and Facebook, they're definitely part of the problem. But my appeal to our listeners out there is that if someone comments on your photo that goes a little bit, left of normal, don't get your knickers in a knot. Actually, try and take it as a positive. If someone's taken the time to look at your photograph and give you some constructive criticism back, and take it on board. If they're just being an a-hole and just giving you grief, just block them. That's fine. But
there's a fair level of jealousy, I think, as well. Particularly. Oh, this will get me in trouble. But it seems like
let's get up
the generation, particularly the generation below ours.
Yes.
So I don't know. What are we? Well, we're kids of baby boomers, right? So we're Gen Xers.
Yeah.
So the Gen Ys of this world seem to be. How can I put it? There seems to be a fair bit of jealousy. There's a lot of FOMO. Yeah. There's a lot of and they're quick to critique. Before really thinking about what they're saying and what they're doing. But it does seem to be getting a little bit out of hand. But again, this is the sphere in which we work, and this is we put our stuff out there. And your comments, I don't know, did they give you the kind of response you thought you'd get?
Yes and no. Yeah, look, I expected some pushback. As you would. But when again, like I said, when people start playing the man, like, there was a couple of comments saying that it was all about my ego, apparently. I don't know how. And there was another one saying that, I think another person put up there saying, well, why don't you show us your shots from last night? I'm like, well, I didn't go out last night because I couldn't get creative. So, I think you're right. Like, to me, it's just a bit of hypersensitivity with people, and I encourage, if anyone knows me, I encourage people to go out there and shoot. I encourage people to go out there and try different things. I encourage people just to take happy snaps. That's fine. There was one comment on there where a person said, well, why don't you give lessons then? And I said, well, I do. I said,
here's the link to my workshop page.
I do give lessons, and I do teach people, and I've mentored people for free, and I've done this and that. No response, just zero, just radio silence. And,
of course.
So I think, and I think it's almost a bit like, with emails. Like, you can read an email 10 different ways. Someone might be being nice, but you take it as being bad. It's really hard because you don't get to interact with those people. And to someone's credit, there was one person who saw that post who actually rang me directly. I've never spoken to this person before. Another photographer here in Tassie. Rang me directly and said, I just wanted to contact you to say I think you're spot on with what you say, and that we need to be challenged and we need to be more creative. I gave this person a little bit of advice about print sales that they were after as well. They followed it up with an email and said thanks very much. And he also said something along the lines of jealousy, egos, and hypersensitivity.
It's disappointing because it stops people from having an opinion or from voicing their opinion, and I think it's important, particularly in our industry. Otherwise, we're just going to end up with a social media feed full of the same crap. We need a bit of prodding now and then.
What we end up with is, in my opinion, it's a false economy, because what you do then is that if everyone's being positive towards everyone's photo, then we've got no yardstick for what's good or bad, because every photo is great. And that, to me, is detrimental to the art of photography. If we, and it's going to sound terrible, and I'll cop it again, but if we keep rewarding mediocre art by people who put up artwork that is not really statistically accepted as a nice photo, or it's technically wrong or whatever. If we keep accepting that as being the great work, oh, that's awesome, mate, love it, that's epic, whatever it is, then that person goes away and continues to create that same work. And then you get more and more of the same things happening. And I'll give you an example down here. Once we had a photographer who I'm pretty sure won't listen to this one, but there was a lot of images that this photographer put out where it was obvious that color temperatures were really bad done. Colors were a little bit sort of out of whack, like reds weren't reds, greens weren't greens. They were just a bit off and looked a bit fluorescent-y sort of thing. And there was a valid reason behind that, which I won't go into in regards to the individual. But no one ever pulled this person up and said, oh, hey, mate, your color's a little bit off. Like, is that right or wrong? No one ever pulled him up. And then this person began to get a lot of social media following. And there was a trend of people putting up shots edited to the same degree of color representation as this person. So you're getting these waterfall shots which had greens that had purple in them. And, oranges that had blues in them. Like all these different things. And because he had a big following online, that all of a sudden became like a trend that people were saying, well, everyone loves that, so I'm going to go and do that. And, technically I thought it was wrong because the colour wasn't representative accurately. Yep. But the masses said they liked that because it was getting likes and getting followers. And so it's a funny one. I don't think I'll put up another post for a few more weeks, but...
you won't be able to help yourself. Come on.
When they do, but...
Please do. I mean, I encourage it. I think it's good. I don't think I would put up a post like that, but I'm one of these people that will tell a photographer that it's a great shot if I genuinely think it's not. If I don't think it's great work, I just don't say anything. Yeah.
Well, that's what I do. And I had another friend down here said to me, "Oh, you don't like all my photos. Why not?" And I said, "I like the ones I like."
Yeah.
And they're like, "Oh, okay." So they automatically took that as like, so that's feedback.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, thank you. I now know, like, because I respect you as a photographer, I now know what to look for.
Yeah. We're so hungry for likes on images these days that we forget. Okay, so if 10,000 people see your work and you get 400 likes, is that a good result?
No,
that's right. 400 likes is great, but if 10,000 people have seen it, 400 likes is crap.
Yeah, that's right.
And so you've got to start looking at things a little differently, don't we?
Yeah. And I think, like I said, my advice is people just need to turn the sensitivity down a little bit.
Yes.
And, just, like I said, different. If someone's just coming and just paying out and you're just being nasty, then you don't need that. You just block them and move on. But if people that, are respected, or people that you respect, or people that you can see also enjoy photography, then maybe don't jump at them first. Have to go back and, like you said, take a couple more minutes to think about what they might be saying, review what they're saying, And same with anyone. If anyone thinks I've ever said a comment or something like that, everyone knows my phone number. It's available online. You can call me and I'll talk you through every comment I put up there. I've got no problem with that. Yeah. Keyboard warriors need not apply.
No, and I think just sort of wrapping up this topic, I would never want to discourage anyone who might be listening to this or who has seen an Aurora photo online, who likes photography, has never been into it. An Aurora comes along, they go and take the same photo that everyone else has taken. I would never discourage them from putting that online and showing people that photo. So that's where it can be a little bit grey area, because you don't know who's posting. You don't know if it's their first ever post. You're scrolling Instagram, Twitter, whatever, and you just see all these Aurora photos the same. I think if I identified a photographer, particularly from this area that I know, and they put up a really ordinary shot of just the Aurora, that would surprise me. But so as I say, the last word on it from me is I would never discourage you from. If you've taken a great photo you're really proud of, I don't care if someone's done it 1,000 times. Post it. Awesome. We want to see it.
And I'm the same. And I'm a big believer in. I don't care about likes online. I really don't. I would rather people give more constructive feedback to me or whatever, instead of just pumping our tires up saying, "Oh, that's really nice. That's really nice." Every now and then, I'd like to get someone to challenge me and say, "Oh, it's cool, but I'd rather this or that." But never discourage people going out and shooting. And if people just want to go out and take shots of the Aurora and just take straightforward shots without anything different, then that's fine. All I was saying is like, let's if you do like your photography and you do like what you're doing, then try and be a bit more creative. And there was a follow-up post to that the next day.
Yes,
for anyone, where I actually put up examples in the last few weeks of people that have done some quite creative stuff with the Auroras, and they were brilliant. They were different. They were great shots, very well thought out, and happy to praise them as well. So
we will link that on the Down South Photo Show Facebook page. We'll put up a link to your to what has unfolded. And it's not about likes, Cam. It's not about likes at all. No. So if you are liking what you're hearing, please hit that like button below.
Yeah, different.
And if you don't like what you're hearing, hit the dislike button.
Don't put that on. Don't put that on. Does that undo it? Doesn't it? Very good.
Okay, so moving right along with this week, I thought we would visit an old friend, Cam. We would reintroduce a bit of gear talk.
Gear talk. I love it.
There's a bit around, and I know. That you have been very interested in a new release from our friends at, what are they called these days?
OM Digital is what they're called.
OM Digital?
You know what they're called.
Okay, not OM System like I called them a few weeks ago.
No, I think, it is OM Digital, isn't it? Yeah, OM Systems.
I think it's OM Digital.
It is OM Digital, yeah.
It's the artist formerly known as Olympus.
Yeah, we could do that. That's excellent. So I've been looking. They've been sort of teasing the last few weeks about a new camera they're bringing out, and this will be the first camera body they bring out under the new logo of OM Digital. I already like part of it. The first part of it I like is because it's going to be called the OM1. Now the OM1 is
that is very exciting.
That is an OM1 in my world.
Yes, it is.
And it makes
and what size sensor has that got in it?
That's got a 35mm sensor.
Yeah. Well, let's do the dueling cameras again.
There you go. So they are bringing that out. There's a new camera coming out, and some of the specs have been leaked online as they always do.
It always makes me wonder. The company leaks them, right?
Surely someone working there is leaking stuff out.
Yeah, talk about likes and hits and things like that. Like, come on, give me a spell.
Exactly.
Okay, so sorry, I just want to dwell a little bit on the artist formerly known as Olympus. Okay.
Yeah. Go for it.
Now, if you go to their website, up in the top left corner it says OM Digital Solutions, right?
Yep.
Then the first image that comes up says
OM System.
OM System.
Yep.
Then the next image that comes up shows an Olympus camera. Now, do they have an identity crisis, Cameron? What is going on down there at the artist formerly known as Olympus?
No idea what they're doing. The OM System is OM Digital is the company, I believe. The OM System is the OM System. It's what their system is going to be. So I think that's where it's coming from. But
okay.
Yeah, I think it'll take a bit to get people's head around. But there is some stats coming out. It looks like it's going to be similar to like the EM1 Mark III. So it should be an upgrade on that. Maybe a bit of a different design with the camera. But it has got some interesting stats, and they're not stats that I'll be totally honest. I don't know why I'm not excited about these stats, because I don't necessarily know what part of this sensor is. So it says it's got a 4/3 stacked BSI live MOS sensor, which I think is a Sony sensor, but I don't know what a BSI live MOS sensor is. Brendan, do you?
Okay,
BSI live sensor. I don't know.
Okay, all right. It sounds like a whole heap of jargon to me, but
so it's got this, and apparently this is meant to be obviously a nicer sensor than the last model. Which is fine, and I think
because it wouldn't have a worse sensor than the last model, would it?
Well, it doesn't have any more megapixels. This is an interesting thing. Okay. From what the stats are leaked out at the moment, it's saying it's going to be about 21 megapixels, which is what they currently are anyway. But obviously, it'll have a different processor. It'll have a different sensor, which may be able to do better and bigger things. But a lot of the other specs, it looks like the autofocusing is going to improve a little bit in regards to autofocus points and how many points it does and how quick it can do. The viewfinder, electronic viewfinder is getting upgraded. The screen will be bigger and more pixels as well. But everything else seems to be relatively the same. Now, these are leaked stats, so generally they're pretty on the mark. But I don't know. I'm not overly excited about it as yet. I was, it's a new company that they're doing. Obviously, they're trying to get the new camera out there, but there says there's a two-stop improvement on low light sensitivity, which would be great because the Olympuses were a tad noisy in regards to doing long exposure at night time. But everything else sort of looks like the same. It's got a few more AI detection modes, so the Olympus cameras can detect birds and planes and race cars and things like that. Looks like they're going to add a few more things in there, but at the moment, it's not blowing my socks off, and I don't know whether or not that sensor is going to make a huge difference. I don't know.
Yeah, so which brings me to the question about gear that, and I've felt this way for a long time, and that is we're getting to the pointy end now where the changes, like the technology has come so far that the changes now are really subtle and more to do with marketing than to do with performance. Now, I'm not having a crack at the artist formerly known as Olympus here. I've taken heaps of photos with Olympus gear. One of my very good friends works for Olympus. You shoot Olympus, blah, blah, blah. It's good gear. A lot of the manufacturers do it across the board, and that is that the technology, it's like, well, how much better can they actually be? It seems like the kickoff, first of all, was the megapixel race, which, they went from 3.2 to 4 meg to 6 meg to 8 meg to blah, blah, blah. And, then all of a sudden we went, whoa, hang on a minute, that's too many pixels.
You've gone too far.
Now your image is too noisy. Whoop, pull it back. And we've settled, for full frame, we've settled at this sweet spot of somewhere between 25 and 40 megapixel. And for micro four thirds like Olympus and Panasonic, settled around the 20 megapixel range. So the megapixel race is now done. That's that cooked. And then it became about autofocus, and all of a sudden we had, my first Olympus SLR. How many areas of autofocus did it have, Cameron?
Your first Olympus SLR, 3.
Yes, digital SLR.
3,
yes,
6, 3. Yeah,
3. It was an Olympus E300. It had 3 areas of autofocus.
Cool. That's awesome.
I think there's now cameras out there, full frame Sony cameras that have 528 areas of autofocus.
Yeah, that's right. That's ridiculous.
Completely useless to
for
99 out of 100 photographers.
Yeah. Well, I found out also what the Bsi Sensor is, which I'm sure 90% of our listeners already knew. But it's a
they're dying to know.
It's a backlit sensor. So, and what that does,
what that is.
What it does, why it's more superior over a CMOS sensor, which is not backlit. It allows the light to hit the little sensor bits, little buckets of sensor. It allows the light to hit it more accurately and freely, so it doesn't have to pass through as much stuff. So, technically, they are a better sensor because they get more, I guess, more accurate lighting hitting the sensor, which is an idiot's way of saying it, which is me. So that might be good. It's used in the Sony 42 megapixel cameras and things like that. It's also used in some of the iPhones.
Yep.
But you're right. Like, where do we stop with specs? And like I said, the megapixel race has been won. The autofocus race still seems to be going on. To me, I think to me now with cameras, it comes down to just how they work. Like, are they easy to manually operate? Are they comfortable to use? And do they have a good range of lenses to go with them? Because really, megapixels, once we're over 20 megapixels, like really, we're not you're not splitting the atom by doing something better with 100 megapixel anymore. So, I find now it's more about, what feature, like a better EVF is great. Having a high res EVF is great. Having better screens is better. Having better batteries is great. Weatherproofing, if you've got good weatherproofing, is great. So there's some things away from. It's almost like saying, you've got your engine and your gearbox. That's fine. That's all sorted now. We don't need to worry about that anymore in cameras. I just want my camera to go fast or look good or be easy to drive or whatever. So,
it's going to be about it's going to be about ergonomics. I think you're exactly right when it comes to how the camera feels in your hand. I think there's still a long way to go in that area. I think speed of processing is probably the new frontier where things is getting faster and faster with as that technology advances, because again, 40 megapixel raw files and you can shoot like 100 in a burst, which is just outrageous,
Well,
really.
This new camera apparently can do 120 frames a second in RAW.
What?
Yeah. So,
okay.
some of the other specs, it's going to do 4K 60p. It's going to do what else? Handheld resolution. So Olympus, and I got a friend who's bought a new Olympus, and she was playing with the other day. I went out, did a shoot with her, and she was playing with the handheld high-res mode and the tripod high-res mode.
Yes.
And the tripod high-res mode, you can do like an 80-megapixel shot. And it works really well. Everyone says to me, oh, that's just a gimmick. I'm like, it's not. It actually works extremely well. You can't tell the difference between the 20-megapixel and the 80-megapixel until you get it on the computer and you can see there's a lot more detail there. So it'll have that. It's still got 7 stops of image stabilizer, which is incredible. And a few, like I said, improved autofocusing and a bit more high resolution EVF and screen. But that's the leak specs. Maybe there's a little bit more there. I don't know. But that's meant to be getting released. It's meant to be shipping in March, so it's meant to be announced in the next 4 or 5 days. So probably the next episode will have a bit more official information.
One other area I want to see advancement. We need to make a wish list of what we would like to see in terms of, because they'll listen.
Of course. If the executives of Olympus, Canon, Sony, Nikon, Fuji aren't listening to every episode of us, then are they really doing justice for the industry at all?
I wouldn't have thought so.
No.
I think battery life needs to just be really looked at.
Yeah.
And we need to get more battery life. Yeah, absolutely. So for like when you're going off on your 8-day hike, you should be able to put a battery in.
Yeah. Well, this is one thing that I think, talking about how we need to get improvements, not just necessarily sensors and things like that. When they started doing USB charging of batteries in camera, awesome. Because you can just take a power bank and one battery and you can light up for a week, no problems. So that, I think, was a great invention. So maybe next episode or one of the episodes coming up, we should try and make we'll make a wish list. We'll come back and say, I want this body camera with this sensor on this lens with this battery, and we'll see what we come up with.
Yeah, okay.
Or maybe not.
I want a sensor that's not made by Sony.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Good luck with that.
A little bit more gear talk. I've been conversing with quite a few of my customers who are keen drone photographers of late. I've got repeat customers who upgrade their drones with me. The DJI Mavic 3 drone, which came out towards the back end of last year, is copying an absolute pasting online for one very, very big issue, and that is the dreaded lens flare. Particularly when you are taking a photo into direct sunlight. So that photo behind you, for example, Cameron.
Yes.
If you shot that with the Mavic 3 Pro drone, right in the middle of that image would be a great big green spot.
I'd probably get a letter. I'd get a letter from CASA too, because it's within 5K of an airstrip.
True. Now, the dreaded green spot happened on the iPhone XR.
Right.
It is still a big problem in the iPhone 10 XR range. It seems to have somewhat been corrected in the iPhone 13. So we don't want DJI saying, this is an optical problem that, it's physics, it can't be fixed. Well, it certainly can be.
Yeah.
To the point where we've had, as I say, this customer of mine who was keen to buy one, ready to order it. And then he started sort of reading reviews and stuff, and he said for a landscape photographer, it renders it pretty much useless. I mean, you're going to have a big green dot. I mean, yeah, sure, you can Photoshop it out. That's not the point. You're paying $3,500 for this thing.
It shouldn't be there to start with. That's right.
Shouldn't be there to start with.
I wonder how Hasselblad feel about that.
Yeah, well, that's right, because it's their name on the front of that. Which, sure, the lens is made in Germany, sure.
Of course it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And the more you look, the more you find a few issues going on with the Mavic 3. So hopefully the firmware update is released soon to correct that, because I know for a fact that they are missing out on quite a few people who want to upgrade, even to the point where I've had 2 customers ask me if they can still buy the Mavic 2, and you can't. It's gone. It's completely out of production, and there aren't any more. Right.
So what you're saying is, if any of our listeners are looking to get a Mavic 3, maybe just hang on a bit.
Hold off, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if they very, very quickly release the Mavic Pro 3S or X,
X
or
or I for improvement. Just on a side note, do we need to get our lawyers involved because we've just ragged the shit out of DJI, or are we good?
No,
we're fine.
No, we're speaking fact.
Well, are we?
This is an issue that exists.
Well, you know what happens when you speak fact online, mate?
True.
It gets very dangerous.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, that an absolute pasting.
That is disappointing because, like you and I both have the Mavic 2 Pro, and that's a cracker of a little drone. And the photos that you come out of, you don't get any flare that I've noticed.
See, DJI, we're not bagging you. You make great products.
I'm making up.
Fix this one.
Yeah, I can't afford the money they're going to ask for us. Defamation. But yeah, that's disappointing. But hopefully they do come out pretty quick and fix problems like that, don't they? Though these days it's relatively quick. So hopefully.
No, I'd be as I say, I'd be very surprised if there wasn't some some quick handiwork done by DJI and they put out a firmware update which is free. You just plug your drone into the internet and
it could be a simple
fixes the issue.
Is it a lens thing or a coating thing or a sensor thing?
Not sure.
If it's if it is an optical thing, then that will be tricky to render properly.
That does make it a lot harder.
Yeah, that'd be a recall.
Ooh. See, now I didn't use that word.
Damn it! This is a joint show, DJI. We're both in this equally.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now we don't have a Dear Cam segment this week because no one sent us one, and that's fine. We get it. Yeah. You're all experts. You know exactly. That's fine. You don't have any questions.
People don't like me giving advice.
However, if you have a Dear Cam question and would like to have it appear in episode 30 of the Down South Photo Show, by all means, send us a question. If you've got a... yes, we are approaching episode 30.
That's crazy. Yeah.
It's not really a milestone.
That's 30 weeks. Well, it's good. 30 is pretty good.
Yeah, it's weird. And to that end as well, a little bit of... not housekeeping, a little bit of homework, whatever you want to call it about the show. Cam and I have decided that every month we will do a live show. So we will have a live show. Is that Sunday week, Cam? Anyway, we'll work out the exact date of when we're going to do it. We're going to post it.
It'll be online.
I think we talked about Sunday the 20th.
Sunday the 20th looks like it might be a live show. That's the day after my birthday. Okay. Feel free to send gifts. I've also got a little bit of an update on our special international guest.
Yes,
I got an email from them. Well, we know it's a him. I got an email from him today. And to give you guys a bit of a clue, it looks like it will be happening towards the later end, or it looks like we'll be recording our little interview with this person later in the month. This person has to go back to... He's currently going back to Zion National Park to do some more photography work.
Zion. People are now Googling to work out who this person is.
So that person is heading back to Zion National Park to try and do some more imagery and maybe make some more YouTube videos that they do very, very well. But stay tuned. They're keen. They're excited. And their parting statement was, "Cannot wait to come down on the Down South Photo Show."
Oh, wow.
So
that is very exciting.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that.
The February challenge continues, which is #ShootOneLength. We will be starting to post people's photos who have used the hashtag. We're going to start sharing that around.
Yep.
We want you to only shoot a landscape at one focal length throughout the month of February. So the same focal length for different landscapes.
Yeah.
Would be pretty cool little challenge, that one.
That'd be where a drone would come in really handy because they only have one focal length.
They do. They're fixed at whatever they're at. Yeah, no, that'd be true.
True that.
If you want to use your drone to do it, then go crazy. We can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool.
Okay, well, that is the end of the podcast for this week, unless you've got anything to add, Cameron.
Look, I think my adding in the last 7 days has been enough for most people. But again, thanks to everyone that did interact with those posts. And again, especially if you want to put in the comments here, feedback and how you feel about, feedback on your photos, whether or not it's a good thing or a bad thing for you. It'd be interesting to get a bit of a gauge from our listeners. Just like, they might turn around and say, "No, I'm happy for people to give me feedback," or they might turn around exactly and say, "You know what, it's my photos, don't care what you think, move on." And that's fine as well. So, but it'd be interesting to get a bit of an idea of where people sit on that topic, because it did go a little bit viral on my little Facebook page this week. So, yeah.
Absolutely. One last thing. Next week, I will have the film back from my Canon. My Pentax K1000.
Yeah.
My Pentax K1000 film will be back next week, so we'll talk a bit about that as well.
Yeah.
This has been episode...
Well, before we go, I actually shot some film the other day up on the east coast of Tassie. I had my Olympus OM3 Ti and a couple of rolls of Velvia. I've got no idea what they look like, but I'll be sending them off this week as well. So
I'll be amazed if mine worked.
Me too.
And on that note, folks, we will see you next week for episode 30 of the Down South Photo Show. Over and out.
See you guys.